It's a good thing we double check. I was getting ready to get excited and announce Cameron is bringing the message this morning. But she was happy. No. So I have a good feeling her dad has the message ready for us. Oh, have you had a wonderful past week? I have. I'm happy when I'm working. I'm happy when I'm seeing things improve, look better. And God is so good to us, isn't He, folks? No matter what the world news may put out every day, we go to the good news, God's holy word. And we just see that God has everything under control. We know that God knows every detail. He knows what's taking place. And we just put our lives in His hand, knowing that He is going to take care of us. He's going to bless us. He's going to touch Pat in the hospital. We have another request called in that we will pray louder. And just so that you folks will be reminded that have joined us today, if you have a request, if you have a need, just call. If you have a question about something, notify me or the two Seans. Notify an elder in the church, and we will do our very best to give you the answer and help you. And in a nutshell, we know who is the answer today, don't we? Who is the answer, folks? Who is the answer?
God.
There you go, Becky. Thank you, Becky. Sean, come up and bless us in the word.
Good morning. Beautiful outside. I have to admit, and I don't mean to, for those that think, you know, it's pretty humid out, like this is my favorite time of year. I'm sorry. I love it. I love when it's hot. I don't care. But that's just me. And I don't mean to be off on that kick. I tend to do this. Wait, I tend to get on the tangents. I do that? No, I don't do that. It just, if there's time coming, you know, we know there's some cold and white snowy days that are coming. Somebody can post so many days until snow or something like that. There's always those kind of memes like that. But it's like, how many people have stopped to thank God for beautiful sunny days right now? Especially, do you like the memes later when they get to the rainy time or whatever? People are like, what's that bright glowing orb in the sky I haven't seen for 3 weeks or whatever? But there's a great meme that's going around right now that says, don't forget to thank God when you receive what you asked for in prayer. Yeah. So, and the other thing that I want to do as a side tangent was off of praise time this morning. What a wonderful time. And sometimes, we've done this a lot, especially our Sunday night service. We've been doing this where we bring up topics that maybe are a little unconventional, things that kind of we take for granted in Christendom. That's quite a word, isn't it? But one of them is, and Richard's always done a good job of talking about this over the past, that we, as Christians, ascribe to a bloody gospel. And so you read that song, and it's like talking about these imagery having to do with blood. And the outside person that doesn't understand would be like, what in the world? Is this like a horror movie kind of thing? What's going on? And I only call attention to that for just a brief moment. I don't mean to detract from what I want to talk about this morning. But it is a bloody gospel in the sense that there is something special happened when someone shed their blood for us. And when we refer to ourselves being sinners, we're not saying that, man, I'm no good in this life. No, the point is, and I've been thinking about that song for some reason this week, all week. And it's the one that says, I am crucified with Christ, and yet not I, but Christ lives within me. Because there's something more special that comes from a life that is lived in obedience to Him. So, sorry for my little pre-sermonette. I just wanted to kind of get that. Richard, sometimes they got to get those out, and they just get stuck in there, and I don't know what happens. Okay, sorry. If I don't do that, I'll do that. I do have something that's been kind of burning on me for now several weeks, and now I have a chance to finally bring it out. And you know me, I'm always about titles. It helps keep me focused, and I like to But I want to talk about the treasure that is slipping silently away. So bear with me because I want to read you a quick little story that I think kind of demonstrates my point. So this is going to be hypothetical, but imagine for yourself that you're on a large ship in the middle of the ocean. In your possession is a small box containing what's most precious to you. Perhaps it's a small fortune of gold. Perhaps it's a single photograph of a person who raised you from birth. Perhaps it contains the crown jewel of your life's work. Perhaps your former wedding ring. Whatever it is, everything that kind of wraps up the core of what you believe ascribe value to is in that box. Then imagine one sudden, unthoughtful moment, you knock the box over the ledge. So picture this for a moment in your mind's eye. Imagine the dread, the panic, the plummeting in your heart as you watch it tumble overboard. Imagine the split-second calculation that rises through you in your impulse to want to jump out and after it. You hear it hit the surface. You see it one last time as the waves are bouncing around it, and it submerges into the darkness. Against hope, you hold your arm out toward the raging waves, reaching in vain as if you're going to have a chance to recover this thing that you watch being captured by the waves. Such a loss like that could disturb someone for the rest of their life, thinking of that imagery. So I'm trying to paint that picture for you. And then I want you to think for a moment also, what if there's another treasure, a greater treasure, that we daily, weekly, and moment by moment allow to slip right over the edge? What am I talking about, folks? This would be one of those riddles. I say all this and I say, what am I? I'm time. Time. Without realizing it, how much of our time is in that box? And do we think about it the same way? I know we talked about this in Sunday school a while back, and it's funny, Crystal kind of resonated with me on the same thing, and it's been stuck with me ever since, and I decided to cultivate this discussion this morning. Because how many of us look at time the same way, as such a precious commodity that we would think about it with everything that's important and valuable to us, that it would be in the box, and that as we watch it plummeting beyond the surface of the waves, would we have the same feeling of dread as we lose it? Or do we even have regret over it? So, I want to do this. We can't place our value. You know, I've always, Richard always said this message, or this, use this phrase. I thought this was kind of just a funny anecdote to this discussion. But you don't see a hearse pull in a U-Haul, ever, do you? Because you're not thinking, okay, I'm going into the grave, I'll have my coffin, all right, I want my set of rings and my fancy jewelry, I want those bonds that were so, well, they're worth a lot, I want them on this side of me in the casket, I want them here. People don't do that, right? Well, they might. In this life, and with their effort they have left over, they might actually think that way. Like, okay, here's how I'm going to plan. And I always remember there was a cute joke, and it was like, somebody, they won a bet, and they finally gave them their $100 bill that they owed them in the bet, and they're like, yes, you know, this guy won, and he's kind of gloating over the person that's giving it over. And then the person says, so what are you going to spend it on? He said, I'm not spending a dime. I'm going to put it in a frame, and it's going to be on my wall for years to look at. And he says, oh, hold on just a second. Let me write you a check. So how do we ascribe value to something like this? I want to reflect on this. I want to talk about this, and then I want to talk about the biblical perspective of this topic this morning. If anything, I'm the kind of guy I like to question things, and this tends to make me tick. But when I look at it, why is it so easy to, we love this term, waste time? Holly and I had this experience in the just this weekend of waiting in lines, and to where she made the bold proclamation, we're done waiting in line for a while, we're going to eat groceries at home. Unless you have to wait in line for Walmart pickup or one of those, then you still have to wait for something, right? But it's like, how many have done that? I want to go kill some time. I want to waste some time. And we do it so flippantly. We say that as if time is this unlimited commodity that we just have an overabundance of. And and we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to talk about the youthful mindset of we know we believe we have nothing time, to where maybe at some point in life we reflect on how much time is there left. And maybe the value of time changes a bit for us. But I do know this. We tend to look at time as common. That's what makes it easy to waste. We look at it as a uniform thing that just kind of, it's here, it's not so precious because it just continues to happen. And I made notes, there's really two big notes as to why that happens that way. Perhaps. And you might think of others, but I'm going to share with you a couple. First, time tends to feel ordinary. I think because it's how we fill our day. We go through the motions. And you know, it's funny, even in the Bible, they refer to a time where, before the flood. And God was kind of, in that writing, he's kind of acknowledging people get used to routine. And it says they ate, they drank, they slept, or whatever. It's almost like they were just going through the motions in life. And they weren't doing anything special, or they weren't trying to make things better for their situation. They were just going through the motions. Have you felt like that in life? You're just going through the motions sometime? Well, there's a note here. Most of us look at life like we're Methuselah. And if you don't know the Bible, Methuselah lived to be 969 years old. Okay, this is that pre-flood time. And you look it up, there was people living hundreds of years old. How many of us do this? Methuselah begot his first son Lamech. Pronunciation question. At 187 years old. How many of us are like, I'm getting to be 180. It's time to have some kids. I'm thinking about, finally sharing with the world. 187, it's time. I gotta grow this family. And he lived another 782 years in Genesis 5:2. I like this. Many of us do this. That we make this mental trade-off. How many of you have done it? In your mind's eye, we get 100 years. The insurance statistical people would say, what's the average age of people right now? 80, 70 something? I don't know. It's somewhere in there. Okay. So, but most of us are like, yeah, we get 100 years or so. So in that frame of reference, we don't really consider what we have. We're like, oh, I'm only, so I got lots of time. Especially when we're young. We're like, there's so much ahead. I remember thinking that as a young man. We're helping with new job, Lex, and she's looking at retirement benefits. Retirement? Well, you got to plan for it because it'll be here someday. But I remember as a young guy getting a job thinking retirement, way down the road. Who cares? Whatever. Keep that for me. I'm not going to put that away for a rainy day kind of thing. You get to our age, which is still, people still call Holly and I young men and women. So, okay, I'll own it. That's it. But, okay, at this age, we're kind of like, what's in that account? Kind of interested in that now. I don't know. But it is, our mind tells us to estimate 80 years. But our heart tells us we're going to be 900 years old by the time we're done. Doesn't it? Because that's how we live life. That precious commodity, we don't, that mind's eye picture, I gave you that story on purpose. We're going to refer to that multiple times. Picture that treasure in that box going overboard and the dread of losing it in the waves. We don't use time that way, do we? We don't. I like this phrase. Time is one of the greatest of all our treasures. It is following continually overboard, silently slipping away. Hence my title. Treasure silently slips away. All right. Yeah, and sometimes, how many of you have done this? We joke about, like, you go on vacation. Sometimes vacation, it's like, I just flew. And you get back, it feels like you never left. You ever done that? Sometimes time feels like you're going at 5 miles an hour. We're just trudging through. Have you ever done that this week? It's never going to end. Friday, come on. Hurry up. That kind of thing. And then other times, time's just blasting through. And we're like, I want some more of that. And so, I think sometimes our mortality comes into mind, but we've got to recognize and maybe stop that mentality of thinking that time is just ordinary. It's just common. The second thing I want to kind of bring up, why it's so easy to waste, is we don't see time dressed in the royal robes it should be. And here's what I mean by that. You see somebody come up and they come out and they've got all this pomp and circumstance and that somebody's got some credential or something important about them. But we don't see time that way. Time seems to look like it's mortal. It doesn't look brilliant. It doesn't look special. It's just another day. And many times when we look back, and I've quoted this before because I love that Beatles song that says, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. How many, and I get so nostalgic thinking about days, how many days have you had that when you look back, you're like, oh, that was a great moment. You've done that to yourself, and now, last night we were just hanging with the girls, riding around, watching the sunset, and I tell Holly, I'm like, I mean, it gives me a moment with her, it's like, I would take a million of those days. Million more. Just us and the girls driving around the countryside, looking at the sunset going down. I would just soak that up. So then when I hear, and this is, they were shared recently about a father who was talking about interaction with their kids and kind of brushing it off and making light of it. Now here's the dad partly coming out. And they were just kind of like, kids, talking about them being annoyance, whatever, hurry through this point or this time or this frustration, whatever's in front of them. And I just cringe. Because I'm like, do you not know the blessing and the gift you're being handed? And think of, my mind's eye would go to, think about a young mother that can't get pregnant. And she listens to that same story and think, you ungrateful fool. Yeah. And any one of us can do that. But I always make this comment, anytime I have acquaintance or an occasion to talk with a young person or a young couple, and I see them maybe struggling with a little one, I so bad want to, is any of the other parents want to jump in and kind of rescue and be like, I know it's frustrating and tough, but just hold on to those moments, because they won't last. And you might think, oh, I just want to get through diapers, or I just want to get through. I remember how freeing it was when they could finally get in the car seat and bottle themselves. It was like, yes, I've arrived. They can hop right in, I don't have to get back there. And then we get a little longer, and it's like, wait, they don't need daddy. Wait, I can help. And I'll put your seat in the bed, and I'll come over. And then I joke about how I'll come over and spend the night in your house and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so I think about that a lot, that ordinary days are some of the greatest when we look back at them in our mind's eye. Ordinary days. There's a movie, and I think it's Adam Sandler, called Click. I've written it down. I think I've seen that movie. And one of the things is, and there's this comment I wrote, that many times we end up on autopilot in life, and over our time especially. And in that movie, that's what happened. He thought it'd be fun to fast forward through things he thought were boring and dreary and whatever. But what happened in the movie, unfortunately, he started autopiloting through moments he didn't want to miss. But we don't always get to choose those. Sometimes the best moments are chosen. We don't even need to. They were created, maybe spontaneously, maybe created, I don't know. But normal days rise in significance when we allow them to. Because we are determined to, and I love this phrase, and this is why I want you to, if anything, I want you to take this phrase out of this. We're going to talk about a couple more, but I want you to talk about, I want you to think about, meditate on how you spend your time. Don't ever forget that phrase. You think about, like, if you got a quarter missing out of your pocket, you might be like, where'd that go? Okay. But if $20 bill fell out, you're like, wait, I had a 20. Where is that 20? Or $100 bills, like, everybody stop what you're doing, help me search the house. We got to find that thing. We think about how we spend our money, and we ascribe value to it. But we don't think about how we spend our time, do we? We don't ascribe the same value. We don't think about it in dread, falling overboard into the waves, being lost forever. I do want to take you now, as we talk about many things. Psalm 90, this is great. Psalm 90, verse 10. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength, 80. Yet their span is but toil and trouble, and soon they are gone, and we fly away. I like also Psalms 95 and 6 talks about we feel like ourselves to be in a dream, or like blades of grass born in the morning, dying that night. It shakes us and awakens us, at least for a time. We should be thinking and mindful of those things, that it can be here and then it's gone. And you know, I'm very mindful of someone who has heard That expression that's come out that says you have limited time left. If you woke up this morning and knew your days were numbered, how would you spend your time differently? Those that are given a diagnosis or other tend to change what they do with their time, don't they? We hear about bucket lists. We hear about other things like, I'm going to do this. But in our normal lives, how many of us do that? How many of us create a bucket list for normal living? We're going to do that. And not just give it words, empty words, without meaning something. But it can be. King Hezekiah in 2 Kings went through something like this. He experienced this exact same awakening. Isaiah the prophet told him, get your house in order. You're not going to make it. You're going to die. In that moment, in that his mind's eye, it's the same thing people would hear when they hear the word terminal. What would you do? What would you do to hear those words? How do you face your mortality, and what do you do differently with your time? In that, it tends to transfigure us. It did Hezekiah. He fell on his face, on his knees, cried out to God. Well, how come I can't have more familiar Fridays, more familiar days? How many of us in those ones would take a ton more familiar days, boring days? We'll take it because we can have some left. And God heard his prayer, spared his life for 15 more years. Normal days had finally come back to him. And then I just also think too, if we are given that, and given a new lease on life, how would you spend your time differently now? Would you go back to the way it was? And it's kind of what I'm doing this morning. If anything, my prayer with this message this morning is to shake every one of you up, out there and here, into thinking about how we spend our time. Because it is precious. And I ask this question. Will you receive normal days as spectacular gifts from a good God? Normal days. Ordinary days. Hump days. Tuesday. Tuesday, Thursday. Those kinds of things. How will you take advantage of that? Psalm 90 is also just a great verse in general. It continues on. 90 verse 12 says, teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. So I had heard down, Mark Schultz has this great song, and I love the little bit of lyrics in it. It says, what will you do with the time that's left? Will you live it all with no regret? Will you say that you loved till your final breath? What will you do with the time that's left? And anybody sing it in their head now? What a great song that trying to get you to think through that. And I may have referred to this before. We used to watch the TV show Wings a lot when we were in college. Holly and I, back in the 90s, it came out. That was a fun show. There was this one episode that, to me, has really been impressionable to me. And the two brothers, maybe one of the first episodes, that their dad had passed away and left them what they thought was a treasure map. And they're like, yes, but the brothers had been fighting and had been estranged for years. So they find this, and they're like, thinking their dad's crazy, whatever, but they're like, you know what, the hope of some money? Okay, they finally got together, they were fighting, but they spent the whole day or week together, searching all over, going through his clues, one led them to another, to another, to another. They finally got to the end, and there's a suitcase, and they're thinking it's full of money. They open it, and I think something popped out, like confetti cannon or something like that. And they open it up, and they look, and there's a note in there. And one of them read it to the other. And the dad said, you're rich. I love that phrase. What did he say? He didn't care. He just wanted to spend the time together. It wasn't about the gift. How many of us are like, I can't wait till this loved one's gone so I can have their stuff? What for? They're not with you anymore. And we're going to look back and say, I wish I had them back. When I got their stuff, woo-woo. What's that going to happen? How many people have gotten the stuff and they spent that money in no time, and then it's like they don't come back? And again, it's kind of back to that same thing. We have the greatest blessings in front of us every single day sometimes. You know the whole grass green on the other side? Look around, it's pretty lush. I love that story with the goats. The goats will lean through the fence and break their necks and get their horns wedged in the fence to get that little grass over there, and there's a whole bunch over here on their side. They don't need it. It's really tall and lush. I gotta keep it mowed because they won't mow it down fast enough. They want the grass over there. And we do it too. We look at our lives and we look at time like there's plenty of it, and maybe something over there would be better. I wrote this, I had this as a note. That movie, the scene I gave you earlier on, reminded me of in the Titanic. And if you've seen the movie, There's several scenes kind of like that, But I thought this is intriguing. This is a true story. One of the last survivors of the Titanic was 95 years old and was auctioning off a bunch of the memorabilia they had, mementos and things. And they were fetching great prices. But people were like, those are priceless things that were on the Titanic. Why are you getting rid of them? And her comment was, oh, it's a man, sorry. His comment was, I'm 95, trying to pay for his nursing home bills. Those things aren't valuable to me anymore. It's like the things that we hold on to so tightly, many times change in life and perspective. And have you done that for yourself? Something that was so valuable to you, the perspective of time, and you look at those things again and you're like, how come I held on to that so tightly? And then later it's like, whatever. It's a thing. And it decomposes. How many of you have done this? You bought something shiny and new, and you let time pass, and a decade later you look at that shiny new thing and think, that car's rusty. That cute bush is overgrown. That house is needing painting. Whatever it is. Yeah. Sometimes garages need painted when you buy them. That's what happens. But the point is, they don't last. But the time we have potential. Let me give you a couple of great verses from the Word. 2 Corinthians 6:2. In the time of my favor I heard you, and in the day of salvation I helped you. I tell you, now is the time of God's favor. Now is the day of salvation. I love verses like that, that God kind of quit having this notion of thinking through tomorrow or next month or next year. Live today. And Holly always had that great verse that she did. She could quote for me. Live in today. Don't remember yesterday and think of tomorrow, but live today. Live today. 1 John 2:17. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. Why did Jesus come on the scene and make comments like that? You need the living water that you'll never thirst again. You need to follow somebody that is going to be here forever. He's made several things like that. Ecclesiastes 3:11. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He's also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to end. We can't picture time when you think of time going on for eternity, that it's been going on for eternity. We can't rationalize that. All we know is with the time we have ability, time, talents, and ability to do something special today. This is a great one. People have this on the refrigerator quite a bit. Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. When you think of that to me, that brings me joy. I love to think through that kind of stuff. Here's a great one. Proverbs 27. Don't boast about tomorrow. You don't know what a day may bring. Psalm 90, verse 12. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. That's a great one. And then here's one. Colossians 4:5 and 6. Be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. And I gotta give you two more. Is that okay? I had made notes on this. Those are really good ones. Not that they're not all good. James 4:13 talks about, now listen, you might say, today or tomorrow we're going to go to this city or that city, spend a year, carry on business, make money. Why? You don't even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? It's like a vapor, the King James says, or like a mist, this translation says, that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Poof. Our whole life feels like that sometimes. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. And that is a wonderful. And then, of course, if you've ever heard the song from the 70s, it quotes this from Ecclesiastes 3:1, which is, there's a time for everything. And a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to tear down, a time to build, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance. Man, I don't know why it makes me emotional, but we have time for everything under heaven. Because we have a God that has entrusted us a bit of time and life and breath. We have something special. I made several notes. Okay, I know I said I'm a movie buff. The Lord of the Rings series, if anybody likes those. There's this scene If anybody knows that series, anybody like that series? All right, at the end, there's that series. They've been through so much, and they're sitting there in their common pub talking about it. And it's the movie between Frodo and this was Gandalf. But they said, I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf. And so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that's given us. Reflecting on something so great they had been through, they changed the world, and the rest of them in there carrying on their conversation didn't have a clue. And yet, they're talking about what do we do now with the time that we have, and what are we doing going forward. Dr. Seuss said this, how did it get so late so soon, in one of his books. Mother Teresa said this, yesterday is gone, tomorrow has not yet come, we only have today. Let us begin. Tennessee Williams in the Glass Menagerie said, time is the longest distance between two places. This quote says, this is a new year, a new beginning, and things will change. Taylor Swift. Great theologian. And Albert Einstein said, time is an illusion. If you study relativity and physics and all those things, you get to But I want to end you with this. I want to leave you with this, which is Ephesians 5:16. King James says, see then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. And get this phrase, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. The phrase redeeming the time is also in Colossians 4. Walk in wisdom toward them that are without, redeeming the time. It's related to how we walk, meaning how we live in what we have. So, redeem means to buy back. Regain possession of something. And I want to leave you with this. Knowing that time is such a gift from God, we have to decide that we need to take it back. I want my time back. I want to do something special with what I have. We can comment, we can talk about what's brought us to this point and acknowledge, okay, maybe I've wasted way more time than I should. Maybe I haven't done what I need to. The thing is, none of that truly matters because you have life right today and you can change everything you want from here going forward. Robin Williams, everybody know that movie, it's My Captain, but yeah, the Dead Boy Society. And he used that carpe diem, seize the day. And I'm not going to jump into that hole, try to get us, we can all be shouting and whatever, try to get you all riled up. But I do want you to recognize what it means, redeem the time that you get to seize today and moving forward. You can change. You can make things different. We can think through our plans, make sure they align with God's will, and we can acknowledge this. I wrote down Tim McGraw, Live Like You're Dying. What a great song, because that's what he's trying to do. Live like you're dying. We are dying. When I say your days are numbered, they are numbered. John Hagee would say this. Here's a statistic for you. 1 out of 1 die. We don't have a choice. Unless we're like Enoch or somebody that didn't have to die physically. We have to. So, and I do want you to acknowledge this. Only what's done for Christ will last. So if we can do that, we can redeem the time, we can acknowledge what we have and where we are, that our life may be a vapor, but there's time in it, and we've got to do something special with it. Pray with me this morning. Lord, I just thank you and praise you for your goodness and blessings. Lord, I praise you for the gift of time. We've been given time, and we have been given an allotment of time. We don't know how much, but all we do know is we get to choose how we spend it. Lord, help us be more than financially astute. Help us be astute with our time. Help us think about our time as a precious commodity that's slipping overboard every single moment, and that we should ascribe more value to it. Lord, help us to do things special for you, because it's more blessed to give than receive, and only what's done for you will last in the eternity. We're going to praise you, and we love you. Thank you for your goodness in Jesus' name.